thing you want to do is make sure your hood is on the way you want it, okay? It's centered, you got the gaps right, because once you drill through your hood, that's it, you can't change it. So make sure your hood's properly in alignment, okay? Next thing you need to do is figure out where you want to put the hood pins. On a second gen Camaro, you've got this section right here that's kind of recessed, which is really about the only place you want it, because you don't want it too far inboard. And you could put it outboard, but the problem is with a hood pin plate such as this, it's going to rock there, and you don't really want that. So this is a good area. It's fairly flat. All hoods have a little bit of a slope this way, a little bit of a curve. So you want to get it in a sort of a flat spot. You don't want it too far forward. You don't want it too far back, obviously. But it also has to do with where you can put the pin on your core support. So we're going to put it right about there. It's going to help keep the ends in place and keep your alignment well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our black. These are Anvil hood pins plates. These are black anodized plates that are what we call stick-on. It comes with a 3M stick-on adhesive. Kind of looks like a Pokemon ball there. We also have the same plate in machine finish, and it comes with the hardware to screw it on, stainless steel of course. We also have the locking hood pin. This one is polished aluminum, and so this one you have also available with or without the screw holes, and it uses a pin such as this, that these locking little, it's like a roll pin that goes in, and then you turn that around and it locks into place. This is the pin that we have for the black hood pins, and that just goes up through there. We supply just a regular aluminum one for the aluminum, either polished or machine finished ones. Now, what you'll notice is a lot of people will want to put the hood pin in this way, so the pin, this pin here, which is called a lynch pin, they put it so it goes this way. You actually want to put it in sideways. The reason being is because you have the slope again. So if you put it in this way, your pin is coming up straight, right? So if it's coming up this way, your plate is going to be at an angle like that. But if it's like this, and you have the pin coming in sideways, it doesn't matter because it's coming in sideways. That pin, this pin, will be flush on that trough, and on this pin the same, because it doesn't matter, it's rocking back and forth this way. If it's this way, what's going to happen is it's going to hit here and not hit here, and it's going to be kind of gouging your plate here, or your hood, depending on the kind of hood pin you use. We have a plate that's attached to the underside of the core support that brings the hood pin inward a little bit, because if we just drilled a hole here, it would be a little too close to the edge, so we wanted to bring it out a little bit. Okay, there's a few of them out there on the market. What we did is screwed the hood pin all the way down, or at least to a point where the underside of the hood is going to make contact, because we want to establish where we want to drill the hole for that pin to stick up through. Now, a real handy way to do that is, this is silly putty, and this is pretty cheap. You can get like a pack of 5 of these at Walmart for about $5. Just happen to have pink, which is really cute. You can use clay, plastilina, or any kind of sculpting clay, as long as it's not all dried out. What you want to do is you want to establish where that's going to go on your hood, right? So close the hood a little bit, kind of establish where that is. It's going to be right around there. Stick this on there on the underside, and then shut your hood until it makes contact with that pin. Now, I was a little off, but you can see it still grabbed it. Right there's the center. Okay, so now what we can do is we can either just drill right through that with a pilot hole with a smaller drill bit to establish where that center point is, or you can use a punch to create a mark in your hood. Now obviously you want to start with a smaller diameter drill than your hood pin, and then work your way up to the size of the hood pin. So we're going to establish where that center point is, and I'm just going to drill right through the silly putty, but I'm going to push that through right there. Make sure you're pretty perpendicular to the hood there. Okay. So that's where your hood pin's going to be. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tape over the hole, and then I'm going to put some tape on the underside as well. I'm going to drill a little bit bigger hole straight down. Okay. Work our way up. Now I'm not going to drill the final hole just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole a little bit smaller than the pin, the post, so that I can test it, make sure I'm pretty close. All right, so once I got the hole fairly large enough to see the pin, I realized that the hole is a little far forward. That might have been because coming up, my drill wasn't exactly perpendicular to the top side of the hood. But that's why we do this. So now we can use a file and file out the hole on the backside to line it up better with the pin. Now, your hole is going to eventually be a little bit larger than the pin anyway, because you don't want it to scrape the pin. So, you sneak up on it. At least we're very close. Okay, so I filed it out a little bit, just enough for the pin to come up through, and you can see we're pretty damn close. So we still need to file the hole out a little bit on the backside to make the hole centered, but I think we're in good shape, because once we put the plate on there, we have plenty of room still. And this particular plate is what we call our adjustable hood pin, so it allows a little bit more leeway for the slope of the hood. So if you have a really sloped hood, this is the way to go. We have some other ones that just have a round hole. It's a little bit bigger than the post. For most hoods, that's fine, but with a lot of, especially like modern day Mustangs and stuff like that, the hood is like sloped about like that. But this is not too bad. I filed this hole on the top side pretty well, but with a composite hood, you really want to just kind of file downwards, because you don't want to pull up on it. The tape kind of helps, but you don't want to kind of bring the fibers up. So what I did was I was mostly just filing the top side surface. This hood has a double-sided, it has a top skin and it also has an underside surface. So now I'm going to file that hole from the inside up. And I'm just filing this surface. I'm not really touching the top side, so I'm kind of doing it at an angle so I won't touch the top side. I pulled the pin out and I put the nut back on there. I'm not using a washer because it's a little too close to the edge of this flange on the core support, so I'm just going to use a nut. I don't need a nut on the underside because this is already threaded. So I just put this in just far enough so we can have it pop up through, and we're going to close our hood, see what we got. Looks like it's dead nuts on right there. So once we put our plate on there, we can center that, and then we can turn this down to where we want it, so it's the holes are pretty lined up with this. Probably want to keep a little space between the hole and here so that the pin doesn't mar the surface too much, but that's looking pretty good. Another thing you can do with our hoods. Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out is, this, I mentioned the slope of the hood on top, usually sloping forward. Now the bottom doesn't always match the top. This particular hood, the bottom is pretty close to being parallel with the core support, where you can see there's a slight slope to the top. So if you're drilling from underneath, you have to consider that. So if it's the same, if the bottom is the same slope as the top, you drilled your pilot hole based on your mark with your silly putty or whatever, you need to go slightly back to compensate for that angle, right? Now, since this is pretty straight, I went straight up. It was a little bit off, but that's why we make the hole a little bit small and then file it to size. It gives you a little leeway, right? So that gives you plenty of leeway because the hole in your plate is quite a bit bigger than the pin, or the post actually that's coming up through. All right. Another thing we're going to do is got these grommets, and we're going to be including these in our hood pin kits. I don't think anybody else includes it, to dress up that hole on the underside. You see this hole, it's a little bit small now, but we're going to drill it out. It's 13/16, and then we're going to put that in there so the post will come through there, and that'll kind of dress up that hole really nice once we get that in there. Okay, so we have the grommet in there, dresses that up very nicely. And on the top side, I sanded this with 220 after I did the filing, and I'm going to put a little super glue in there, and then I'm going to put the plate on there. So there it is. Both hood pins are in now.